Why ancient humans lived more than us today. Right now, you are probably sitting down. Maybe you have been sitting for the last 2 hours. Maybe longer. You sat during breakfast, sat during your commute, sat at your desk, and now you are sitting here, watching this. And at no point today did your body have to do anything it was actually built to do. That sentence should bother you more than it does. Because the body you are living in right now, the spine, the lungs, the heart, the metabolic machinery running silently beneath your skin, was not designed for this. It was designed over hundreds of thousands of years for something else entirely. Something your daily life almost never asks it to do. And here is what nobody tells you. The humans who lived before agriculture, before cities, before chairs, they were not the fragile, short-lived primitives you were taught to picture. Researchers who study skeletal remains from pre-agricultural populations have found something deeply uncomfortable. These people were taller. Their bones were denser. Their teeth showed almost no decay. Their joints, by middle age, looked nothing like ours. So what happened? What did they have that we lost? That question is going to take the rest of this video to answer properly. But here is the first piece. A landmark study published by researchers at the University of Cambridge found that the transition to farming, the single event most people call the birth of civilization, was accompanied by a measurable collapse in average human health. Shorter stature. More bone disease. More infection. More nutritional deficiency. The agricultural revolution did not make humans healthier. It made us sicker, and we have been trying to recover ever since. But the story goes much deeper than food. Humans who lived before all of this, anthropologists call them hunter-gatherers, moved constantly. Not because they wanted to. Because they had to. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer populations like the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last remaining groups living in a way closely resembling our ancestral past, have measured their daily physical output. The Hadza walk between 5 and 7 miles a day on average. They dig, carry, climb, lift, and squat hundreds of times before sunset. Their cardiovascular systems, studied by exercise physiologist Herman Pontzer at Duke University, show almost no age-related decline in aerobic capacity until very late in life. In Western populations, that decline begins in your 30s. Let that land for a moment. Your cardiovascular system was built for decades of sustained, varied physical output. What you are giving it, an hour at the gym 3 times a week if you are disciplined, nothing at all if you are not, is not a replacement for what your ancestors did simply by staying alive. But here is where it gets stranger. The conventional picture of ancient human life is built almost entirely on average life expectancy. And that number, often cited somewhere between 25 and 35 years for pre-agricultural humans, sounds damning. It sounds like a life that ends before it really begins. But that number is deeply misleading, and researchers have known it for decades. Anthropologist Rachel Caspary at Central Michigan University spent years analyzing the ratio of old individuals to young individuals in fossil populations across human prehistory. What she found upended the standard story. When you remove early childhood mortality from the calculation, deaths from accidents, predators, and infections in the first few years of life, which were devastatingly common, the picture changes completely. Ancient humans who survived to adulthood regularly lived into their 60s and 70s. Some showed skeletal evidence of living well past 80. The short average lifespan was not because ancient adults aged faster or died younger from degenerative disease. It was because infant and child mortality was catastrophic. The adults who made it through were often remarkably robust. And what killed them in adulthood was almost never what kills you. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, Alzheimer's disease, colorectal cancer. These are the illnesses filling hospital beds across the modern world. These are the conditions draining healthcare systems and shortening lives in every industrialized nation. And then the skeletal and mummified remains of pre-agricultural humans, they are almost entirely absent. Cardiologist Gregory Thomas at the University of California analyzed CT scans of 137 mummies from four ancient populations across Egypt, Peru, the American Southwest, and the Aleutian Islands. His team was looking for calcified plaque in the arteries, the biological signature of cardiovascular disease. They found it in mummies as old as 3,500 years. But the rates were dramatically lower than in modern populations, and the mummies that showed it were predominantly from agricultural and early urban societies, not the hunter-gatherers who came before. Your heart was not designed to fail at 62. The evidence suggests it was designed to last much longer than that. The question is what changed the conditions it was operating in. Part of the answer is sleep. Hunter-gatherer sleep, studied directly in the field by sleep researcher Jerome Siegel at UCLA, looks almost nothing like modern sleep. The Hadza and two other hunter-gatherer groups Siegel studied did not sleep 8 uninterrupted hours. They went to sleep roughly 3 hours after sunset, woke occasionally through the night, and rose before or with the sun. Their total sleep time averaged 6 to 7 hours. But here is what mattered. Their cortisol rhythms, the stress hormone that regulates waking and recovery, were sharply defined. It rose cleanly in the morning and fell cleanly at night. In modern populations, cortisol rhythms are blunted. Artificial light after dark suppresses melatonin. Screens delay sleep onset. Chronic low-grade stress keeps cortisol elevated through the night. Your body is technically sleeping, but it is not recovering the way it was designed to recover. Over years, this matters enormously. Chronic cortisol dysregulation is now linked to accelerated cellular aging, immune suppression, and increased risk of the exact diseases that define modern death. Your ancestors did not just live differently. They slept differently. And that difference compounded across every decade of their lives. There is one more piece that almost never gets discussed. Social structure. Community. The density of human connection in pre-agricultural life was not optional. It was survival. Hunter-gatherer bands typically consisted of between 25 and 150 individuals who lived, moved, ate, grieved, and celebrated together constantly. Loneliness, true social isolation, was not a modern epidemic for them. It was functionally impossible. You were surrounded by your people every waking hour. Researcher Julianne Holt-Lundstad at Brigham Young University conducted a meta-analysis covering 148 studies and over 300,000 participants. She found that social isolation increases the risk of early death by 26%, comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The modern epidemic of loneliness is not a soft emotional problem. It is a measurable biological threat. And your ancestors lived in a world where it simply did not exist. We did not evolve for solitude. We did not evolve for stillness. We did not evolve for processed food, artificial light at midnight, or the particular silence of a room where the only other presence is a screen. We evolved for movement that never stopped. For sleep that followed the sun. For food that had to be found. For community that was inescapable. For a life that asked everything from the body and, in return, kept it strong for decades. The chronic diseases shortening modern lives are not random. They are not bad luck. They are the precise biological consequences of a mismatch between the body you inherited and the world you built. Your ancestors did not live long because the ancient world was easy. They lived long because the ancient world demanded exactly what the human body was made to give. And somewhere in the distance between that world and this one, we lost the demand. And with it, quietly, we lost the health.